In this video, we are going to go through few examples on how you could use list and also apply different concepts and different list methods to manipulate your list and access items in different ways. So starting off with a small introduction on list. List is nothing but one of the built-in data types that we have in Python, which could store multiple items in it. So when you store a single item inside a variable, you could just use the variable name to access that item. But when you have multiple items, there are different data types that would come in to store multiple items. One such data type is nothing but a list. And how would your interpreter, Python's interpreter, would identify that this is a list is by looking at the brackets you have. So when you have all your items enclosed by using a set of square brackets, it is considered as a list here. It's how your interpreter would identify that this is a list. And when you have multiple items, there comes a question, how am I gonna differentiate between the items? How am I gonna access only one particular item? That's when the indexing concept comes in. So you have something called index numbers, which would start at 0. So this item John index is 0 and Tom would be 1, Iris would be 2, and Monica would be 3. So whenever I want to access an item from a list, I'll have to write the list name, and then within a set of square brackets, I can write the index name I want to access. So let me first of all run this. So name list of 0 would be first item in the name list. That would be John. And likewise, you can go for the remaining items. 1, 2, 3 would be Tom, Iris, and Monica. But when you try to access an item that is not in the list, it would throw an error saying index error, because the index has gone out of the range. I have only items till index 3. So this index 4 is going to throw an error saying index out of the range. And there is another way of accessing your list through index number, accessing your items through index numbers. One is going in the forward direction. So when you go in the forward direction, you will be going from 0, 1, 2, and 3. But if you try to go in the reverse direction, you will have to use the index numbers in the negative numbers, in the negative terms like -1, -2, -3, and -4. So that's what our next example is about, having or accessing items from the list by using index numbers. So there you go. I have name list of -1, name list of -2, -3, and -4, which would indicate that I'm accessing it in the reverse direction. So that would be Monica, Iris, Tom, and John. And then the next is again trying to access an item through an index which does not exist. I have only till -4, and there are no more items after John, after -4. So it would throw an error saying index error here. So indexing is nothing but trying using index numbers to access the item, and there are two different ways to do it. By going forward is one way, by using numbers from 0, 1, 2, and 3, and you could also access the items in the reverse direction like -1, -2, -3, and -4. Now let's move to our next concept called slicing. Slicing is nothing but it would let you pull a part out of a sequence or pull a particular set of characters from a sequence. So for example, I have 4 items in this list, like I have John, Tom, Iris, and Monica. Now say I want to have only pull, or I need to access only 2 items. In that case, what you could do is you could just use your slicing concept in order to pull the number, set of items that you want. So how do you write slicing is by using or separating the numbers using colon. So colon is the main part in here that would let your interpreter understand that this is slicing. So you'll have to write your index number. So this would be considered as lower bound, and this would be considered as upper bound. And the third integer is nothing but the number that you would give in order to tell your interpreter from or by what it has to increase from the lower bound to the upper bound. So say for example, I have given my lower bound as 0 and my upper bound is 5. So, and the third number is 1. So from 0 to 5, it's going to go in the increasing order, which means it's going to display all the items. When I say 2, it's going to increase by 2 and going to display only those items. So let's see that with an example here. So I have 0, 4 and 1, which means my lower bound is 0 and upper bound is 4. There is something else that you need to know whenever it comes to a range or whenever it comes to upper bound, lower bound. In Python, your interpreter would not include the upper bound. So 4 is the upper bound here. It would not include upper bound, but it would go up to 3. So upper bound minus 1. That would be the final value that it would display. So from 0 to 4, the items would be John, Tom, Iris, and Monica, and it's 1 here. So it's displaying in the increasing order by 1. And I have here, I have no numbers mentioned, but I have colon that would indicate that I'm trying to perform slicing here. And since no numbers are mentioned, it would go by the default values I have. So the lower bound would be the first item in the index, in the list, and the upper bound would be the last item in the index, and the third number would be 1. By default, it would increase by 1. But when you don't have any numbers mentioned in the upper bound, your interpreter would include the last item as well. So it would display all the items from the list. So I have 0, 3, nothing. So it would start at 0, would go up till 3 without including 3, which means 0, 1 and 2. So this is 0, 1 and 2, and it's going in the increasing order by the default value 1. I have 0. So this is another interesting example we have. I have 0. So say my index numbers are 0, 1, 2, and 3, but the third number is minus 1, which means that I'm going to start with, I'm going to go in the reverse direction. So when I go in the reverse direction, I have to, no matter in what direction you go, your lower bound has to come before the upper bound. But here my lower bound is 0, but my upper bound is 3. So if you go, since it's minus 1, have to go in the reverse direction. If you look from the reverse direction, your upper bound comes before your lower bound. So there are no items between that range, where your 0 being lower and 3 being upper in the reverse direction. So it would return an empty set of list. So it has returned an empty set of list here. So next is 3, 0. So here we have corrected the mistakes. When I'm going in the reverse direction, 0, 1, 2, and 3, reverse direction. So my lower bound is 3 and my upper bound is 0. So it's gonna go from 3 to 1 and 0, but would not include 0, as you know in Python. When it comes to range or upper bound, your interpreter would not include the upper bound, but would go up till before that upper bound number. So it would be Monica, Iris, and Tom. There you go. So here again, I have not, no upper bound and lower bounds are mentioned, but we know that we're going to go in the reverse direction because of the third integer minus 1, or third element minus 1. So when you go in the reverse direction, since no upper and lower are mentioned, it would consider the first item in the reverse direction. Like for example, I have 0, 1, 2, and 3. Minus 1. So it would consider this as the lower bound, and this would be the upper bound, the last item. But since it is not mentioned, the interpreter is gonna include this as well. So it's gonna print item at index 3 first, which is Monica, and then Iris, Tom, and John. Your interpreter would consider all the items only if it is not mentioned there. So since it's not mentioned, so including all the items. And here I'm increasing by 2. So say I have 0, 1, 2, and 3. So my first index, since no lower bound and upper bound are mentioned, we're going to consider all the items in the forward direction because the third integer is a positive number here. So we're going to start at 0 and it's going to increase by 2. So it's going to print item at 0, which is John. And then 0 plus 2 would be 2. Gonna jump to index 2, that would be Iris. So it's gonna, so 2 plus 2 would be 4. Since it's not within the range, so the interpreter is gonna stop here and print only John and Iris. So here you go. So now we are going to go through few methods that you could use on list in order to manipulate it. As we know, list is one of the most flexible data type that we have in Python. You can insert items wherever you want. You can remove any items you want. So we're going to go through two methods to add items to the list. One is insert method, other one is append method. The difference is when you use insert method, you are inserting the item somewhere in the list, which means you need to mention at what index you're gonna insert it. So I have an list called, John, Tom, Iris, and Monica. So let me write that down here for you. So, John, John, Tom, Iris, and Monica. So here I'm going to insert Ken, a new item, at index 1. So when you use insert, it takes two arguments. One is the index number, other one is the item. So I'm going to insert it at index 1, which is here. This is index 1, right? So your Tom would be moved to Iris, and Iris would be moved to Monica. Monica would be moved to the next position. 2, 3, and 4. So now if I run this, so you can see John, Ken, Tom, Iris, and Monica. And next I'm using append method. Append is to, add an item at the end of the list. So when you use append, you don't have to mention the index number. It would automatically add the item after the last item. That would be after Monica here. So you can see John, Ken, Tom, Iris, Monica, and Ray. And to delete an item from the list, there are two ways. One is to use remove method. When you use remove method, you have to mention the item that you want to remove. So namelist.remove, and within parentheses, you can write the item that you want to remove. So let me run it. So this would have removed Ray from the list. So in order to check it, I'm going to print it here. So print named list, John. So let me run it. So John, Ken, Tom, Iris, and Monica. So Ray has been removed. So here is another way of removing the item. Next is using pop method. So when you use pop method, you have to mention the index number for which you want to remove the item for. So if I run this, it is gonna remove the item. Okay, my bad. Okay. Let me run the list again. I ran it twice, so it removed the items to two different items. So I'm gonna add Ken. Yeah, pop. Now, this is the final list I have. I have John, Ken, Tom, Iris, and Monica. Using pop, you have to mention the index number for which the item has to be removed. So I'm going to remove Ken from here. For that, I'm using the index number 1. And here, when you use pop, it's not just going to remove it. It is also going to return what item has been removed. So that would be Ken. And in order to see what other items are left, I'm going to use print line. So print of named list. So we have John, Tom, Iris, and Monica. You can also use pop method without using the index number here. So that would technically remove the last item. It would not remove a random item. It would remove the last item. That would be Monica. So Monica has been removed and has been returned as well. And print named list. John, Tom, and Iris are the three items that are left in the list now. Now we have another common method called len, which indicates length that would tell you number of items in the list. That would be John, Tom, and Iris. So 3. And We have sort method. This is to sort your list. If it is made of completely string data type, then it's going to sort it in the alphabetical order. So when you simply use dot sort method, list name dot sort method, it is going to sort the list and update it back in the list. So it has sorted and updated it. Now if you run named list, it's going to show how the items are being stored inside the list. So it's storing. So initially it has John, Tom, Iris in this order. Now after sorting, you can see the order has been changed to the alphabetical order. You have Iris, John, and Tom. Next is name list 2. I've created a new list because I want to show you the difference between sorted method and sort method. There are two different methods to sort your list. The major difference between these two methods is when you use sort method, it would sort your list and update it back in the list. But when you use sorted method, it would sort the list and the sorted items should be assigned to a new object or a new list in order to store it, because the sorted method would not update it back in the list called name list 2. So when I run this code, so I'm sorting name list 2 and assigning the sorted list to N2, and I'm going to see what is inside N2. So initially name list has Tommy, Johnny, and Taylor in this order. After sorting, N2 has Johnny, Taylor, and Tommy in this order, items in this alphabetical order. Now checking how it is stored in name list 2 again, that would just return the actual way I have created it, because as I said, when you sort it, it would not disturb the existing list. And we have min, max, it would return the minimum value in the list. When you have alphabets or string data type, it would return the least item that carries the least alphabet in the first letter. So A being the least and Z being the highest in the in the alphabets. So min of name list would be Iris, max would be Tom, the item that has the greatest value. So we have count method here. This is gonna return how many times a particular item has repeated in a list, because your list can have repeated items in it, right? So it's gonna just return you the number of times this particular item Tom has has added. Excuse me, there is only one item called Tom, so that's one. And we have name list dot index of Tom. This would index method would return at what index this particular item has been stored. So that would be Tom index would be index 2, 0, 1, and 2. There you go. And we have membership operators here, which is nothing but gonna let you check whether a particular item is present in this list or not. You have in operator and not in operator. The output would be either true or false. So here is an example. Tom in name list. So this is going to check whether Tom is present in name list or not. If it is present, it is going to return true, or else it's going to return false. So we have Tommy not in name list. So we don't have Tommy in name list. We do have Tommy in name list 2, but not in name list, the first list that we created. So it's going to return true. So only if it's not present, it's going to return when you use not in operator. So here is our final example of having a list inside a list. You can have a tuple inside a list, a dictionary inside a list, and also a list inside a list. But it's different when you want to access it. It's little different, not too much. So say I have two lists here, but in a two list inside a list called list 1. But in total, I have 3 items. The first item is a list, and the second item is also a list, and the third item that I have is a string data type. So altogether there are 3 items in the list. So len would be 3. Now if I want to access the first item, I have to use index 0. So list 1 of 0 would be 1, 2, and 3. Then 1 would be 4, 5, and 6, and 2 would be hello. So let me run and show that to you. So list 1 of 0 is 1, 2, 3. List 1 of 1 is 4, 5, 6. The second list, and list 1 of 2 would be hello. Now, the another not a complicated one, another tricky part is how am I gonna access just one particular item in a list that is inside another list? Say I want to access one here from a list that is already in another list. So in that case, I have to use two different index numbers. One is the altogether index, which is 0. This one is in a list, the entire list index number. So this list index number is 0. So that's the first index number you need to enter. And then the second index number is the index value of that particular item within that inside list. That would be 0 again. So now list 1 of 0 and 0 would return 1, as you can see. And same goes for 2, 3. So 2 is nothing but hello here. This is 0, 1 and 2. So hello, and I'm accessing index 3. That would be L here. So this index numbers, it's not just for list, tuple and dictionary. It is for sequence in general. And string data type would also comes under string data type in Python. Sorry, sequence data type in Python. So the first letter would be 0. Second would be 1. Third L would be 2. And fourth L would be 3. 4 would be 4. Index would be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I'm going to access list 1 of 2, 3. That would be L. So if I run it, it's going to return L here. Next, I have tuple here. Tuple is also another data type, one of the other data types that you have in Python. And the difference between tuple and list is, first difference that your interpreter gonna use to identify is the brackets. When you have all the items enclosed with a set of parentheses, then that is considered as a tuple here. The major difference is your list is a mutable one. Like you can change any item you want inside the list at anywhere you want the list, just like we saw, right? We went through few methods. But when it comes to tuple, you won't be able to, manipulate your tuple. List tuple is a immutable one, so you won't be able to change any items inside it. But what you can do is you can perform other actions that we just saw. You can use indexing concepts to access an item. You could apply length method, and you could also apply sort method. So in this list, I have two items. One item is dictionary, just like we saw earlier, like how your list can have another tuple or another list or a dictionary inside it. Your tuple can also have another list, another tuple, and another dictionary inside it. So here is an example of having a dictionary. That's a first item. And how do I say that this is a dictionary? Is by looking at the brackets. When you have curly brackets, and not just that, you need to have a key value pair. So 1:2, comma 2:3. That's what we have in here. This would indicate that 1 is the key here. 1 is the key here and 2 is the value. And same goes for the second item, 2 being the key and 3 being the value here. And that's how your interpreter is going to identify that this is a tuple. Sorry, this is a dictionary. That would be index 1. And the second item index would be 1. The first item would be 0. Second item would be 1 here. Now, when I want to access this, say I want to access this too. How am I going to access this? This is not going to work how the list inside a list works, but it's little similar here. First of all, you need to write the common index. So common index is 0 for this dictionary, but within that dictionary, that index, that item 2, it's a dictionary, right? So every item has a key here, and you'll have to use the keys to access that value. So when you get inside the dictionary, it's not the index number you use, it's the dictionary that you would use to access that item. So this one in here would indicate the key, which is this, and the value for this one key would be 2. So 2 would be returned. So let me run and show that to you. There you go. 2 has been returned. But if I have, if I write 2 in here, which would indicate this. This is the 2 key I'm writing there. So the value would be 3. So let me run and show that as well. So 3 has been returned now. And final example is just finding the length of tuple 1, that would be 2. So first item is a dictionary and second item is an integer here. So with this, we have covered most of the methods in in list data type. In list data type, and there are a few other methods as well. But these are the major methods that you will be using. With this, we have come to an end here. We'll see you in the next video with a different concept.